And for folks like me who are in the legislature, that when we're at our best in advocating, that we lift up those voices. We do not speak on anyone else's behalf. They have their own voices. They have power. We are merely amplifying and further validating the work that's being done on the ground. So I want to pay special thanks to the Coalition of Natives and Allies, who I've worked very closely with over the years and who I hold in very high regard. And I also want to give a shout out to a young woman who's a recent graduate of Council Rock North, who has been fighting the good fight. I'm not sure if she's made it on this call. I want I'm not going to say her name out of privacy issues, but a graduate from that high school who's been fighting one of the racist mascots that still endures in our Commonwealth. And she reached out to me and said that she was in touch with Coalition of Natives and Allies and others to get help to move her school community to be on the right side of history. So I like to lift up those student activists and allies who may not be Indigenous, but who know right from wrong and understand that our fates are intertwined. Um, can you all hear me still? Okay, all right. So the last thing I want to say, I'm speaking to you all from California. I'm here for a board meeting on environmental issues for state lawmakers around the country. And when we talk about shared prosperity, when we talk about the Commonwealth being a refuge for religious freedom, when we talk about all the fanciful rhetoric around what matters and what government is supposed to do, it is in these moments where we lift up things that may be controversial but shouldn't, that few others are. And I've had quite a journey understanding the importance and continuing influence of Indigenous peoples across the Commonwealth and the nation. And it is why I have, over the years, working with others, introduced various pieces of legislation around these important communities. Um, and I have always gotten uh, more negative feedback than positive, sadly. More vitriol, more hate and bigotry. And it cuts so deep. And I'm always surprised at of all the things that people are building up this rage around, that it's this subject matter around Indigenous peoples. And it just reminds me that this is a country born on stolen land and stolen labor.
Mhm.
And that is a sensitive subject for many people, particularly those folks who do not want to acknowledge its truth. But unless and until we deal with these issues, we can never heal as a commonwealth or a society. And we can't be stronger. And, to reference a political trope, we cannot be great until we are good.
Mhm.
And this is a moment where we need to embrace our collective goodness. And in that process, we have to expose ugly truths and also lift up the voices of folks who've been seeking to be heard and who've been fighting the good fight in obscurity, who are being marginalized, who are being threatened. I'm seeing the faces of folks who are on the front lines right now for years. This is a very personal issue for many folks, but it's also something that is deeply tied to the very fabric of our society. And I always get, well, why are you doing silly resolutions and bills when you should be focusing on this, that, and the other? We have room for all the work, and it's all interconnected. It
Mhm.
is all interconnected. And so, whether it's bills to ban racist mascots or tuition waivers for Indigenous folk who descend from the people who went through the Carlisle School, and I'm using went through very lightly. whether it's talking about the National Day of Mourning, um, any number of things. These things have to be discussed. They have to be discussed and deliberated on meaningfully. And the people who should be part of this conversation, who should be leading it, who are centering it, are Indigenous peoples themselves. And unless and until we have an Indigenous member of the state legislature, um, I will continue to do this work in good faith, and really hope that we can move this process along, whether it's one of my bills, whether it's a hearing on these important issues. I believe there will be momentum sooner rather than later. And that momentum will be furthered by the work of folks on the ground. And I'm just pleased that I have some small role to promote this in this legislative body and through my public platform as a public servant. Um, I'm so pleased that the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission has taken on this noble cause to lift up policy that addresses these issues, because this is not something that should be relegated to the margins. It is something that should be lifted up and made um, the primacy of this. It relates to our collective humanity, and our fates are intertwined. So how we treat Indigenous folk is how we treat, it should be how we treat all folks without hierarchy of humanity. And so I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I have not had many opportunities to speak on these pieces of legislation and these topics because these have not been considered priority issues, and that is unacceptable. And thanks to the commission and others, that will start to change, because it's what did Dr. King say? The time to do right. It's always the right time to do right, and this is the right thing, and this is the right moment. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Rabb. Thank you so much for being with us. We know that you have to leave. We know that you're in California, and I don't think I'm the only one who's jealous to hear that you're in California right now. I'm in Pittsburgh, and here in our region, we're snow covered. So send some of that California snow our way. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. It's important work, and thank you for your words this afternoon. We so much appreciate your advocacy. And thank you so much for being with us. And we hope it's not the last time. We know it's not. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That was amazing. Well, it's an honor. We are here today to hear from the Coalition of the Natives of Allies. And I'm going to do a quick intro. There's so much. I just really want to dig into the information that they're going to present to us. I've had the opportunity of speaking with Arla over our time of scheduling and learning so much. I thought I knew some things, but I'm really excited to be able to be in the space of being able to inform even more with the information that we're going to hear today. So our time today, the Coalition of Natives and Allies, it's a cross-cultural collaboration of Native Americans and allies who value cultural diversity and respect for all peoples. Through education and advocacy, CNA aspires to teach the truth about Native American histories, modern-day Native issues, and bring awareness to the trauma caused by negative and archaic stereotypes used for sports mascots. By highlighting the bias and prejudice these stereotypes cause, CNA strives to end the harmful use of Native American representations in schools. So without any further ado, I do want to at least say their names because I think saying names are so important. Pull that up here. I have a lot of, so here we have Donna Fan Boyle from the Choctaw Cherokee Nation. We have Kelly Bova from Dakota Nation. And we have Lynn Azarki, who's an ally. And we have Arla Patch, who's also an ally and the program coordinator here at CNA. So please give them a PHRC welcome here today, hand claps. Thank you all so much for being with us today.
Hello, everyone. Alito Jim Achukma. We want to thank Anita Levels from the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission for inviting us here today. and to thank Amanda Brothman-Jumper for tech support. And we would also like to thank Rep Rab and Ambassador.
Sorry, this is on the wrong screen, and I'm not sure why it's.
Can you go back?
Yeah, I don't see the way to go back.
Can you just hold it, Carla? And then.
Here we go. All right, sorry.
Okay, so we also want to thank Chad Lassiter and Rep Rab for their comments. Please don't feel that you have to take notes or because you will receive several handouts after this talk. One of which is a fact sheet so you can share accurate information with others. That's how we change hearts and minds with the truth. Please share what you learned today.
It is important to know whose land you are on. That is a very basic first step. However, it needs to be followed up with action. And what that action is can be stated as a part of the acknowledgement. Otherwise, it is just a hollow gesture. Also, part of such a statement can be acknowledgement of the true history of the indigenous peoples whose land you are on, and what actions you plan to take as a result of this knowledge. Where we are now. The reason we have no state or federally recognized tribes in Pennsylvania is that Native people were driven out, massacred, or died of disease by the 1700s. Some tribal people in New Jersey hid within the African American church and survived as a cohesive, self-governing community since colonial times. They have received state recognition.
Lynn,
we can't hear you.
Okay, so we're not doing the 5 members?
No, you're doing.
It's the map.
The map, I'm sorry. Here you see the early 1700s for the original expulsions, proof of an interconnected self-governing community since colonial times, is what is needed to be recognized as a tribe. There's a group in Pennsylvania trying to get state recognition as a tribal nation, but they do not have that proof. They have a few individuals with descendancy, a relative who was in Lenape, but that is not the same thing as a tribal government.
We will each introduce ourselves now. My name is Donna Fan Boyle. I'm a co-founding member of CNA. I'm Choctaw and Cherokee. I'm also a member of the American Indian Movement. One of our co-founding members, Ramona, is Mohawk. She's also a member of the American Indian Movement. She couldn't be here with us today.
My name is Kelly Hana Matakiape. I am Dakota born and enlisted in South Dakota, enrolled in Sisseton Wahpeton Oyate on the Lake Traverse Reservation, and you'll learn more about me in this talk.
Hi, my name is Lynn. I'm an ally and a co-founding member of CNA and president of Bias Busters.
And my name is Arla, and I'm an ally and a co-founding member and the program coordinator for the coalition. I got involved in Indigenous justice in Maine when I served on the Wabanaki Truth Commission. So how did this history get started? 50 years before Columbus even sailed, popes in Rome put out decrees, and they were called the Doctrines of Christian Discovery. If you arrive at a land and the people are not Christians, you can basically do what you want. You can capture, vanquish, and subdue the Saracens, pagans, and other enemies of Christ. You can put them into perpetual slavery, take all their possessions and property. Essentially, they are no more than the animals that you would come across. This is a deep underlying basis for white privilege.
This doctrine of discovery was cited as recently as 2005 by the Supreme Court in the case of Sherrill versus the Oneida. Shifting to Columbus, I hope you all know by now that Columbus never set foot on this continent and he was a barbarian, burning native peoples alive, cutting off limbs, raping children, smashing babies on rocks. Celebrating this vile person is an awful insult to our native brothers and sisters. Here you can see historic documentation from Bartholomew de las Casas, a monk who made firsthand accounts in diaries. And then there are the bounties. Money paid for the scalp of a native person.
This one is for the New England area. the Spencer-Phipps Proclamation, but there were bounties all over the United States, including Pennsylvania. This is the actual copy of the Spencer-Phipps from 1755. A male scalp was worth 50 pounds sterling, what the clergy or a teacher would make in a year. But to prove it was male, you had to include genitals. There was a lesser amount for women and even an amount for children under the age of 12. My grandchildren would have been targets. This is the real meaning of the word Redskins. This word is a racial slur to us, and as Native people, the R word is as painful as the N word.
The continent was originally full of inhabitants for many thousands of years prior to the European invasion. Indigenous people have suffered 95 to 98% depletion since first contact. Disease, massacres, and policies intentionally made to reduce their numbers have created the loss of native lands on the map that we see here. You see here the Declaration of Independence. This disregard for the value of indigenous peoples goes back to this Declaration of Independence, and you can see here, quote, merciless Indian savages. My hope is that you learned about the Trail of Tears. What you might not know is that there are multiple Trails of Tears, not only for the Cherokee, but for the Choctaw, the Seminole, the Creek, and the Chickasaw.
The government intentionally set them out in winter and gave them smallpox-infected blankets to further cull their numbers. We were challenged by a professor that a smallpox fact was incorrect, so we found written proof, which it specifically suggests the use of smallpox-infected blankets and clothes. The U.S. government vigorously fought indigenous tribes over possession of the land, and it's important to understand that the, quote, Indian Wars were events that were very lopsided with resources and weaponry, often breaking promises and lying about agreements, which created endless massacres. Many times, the, quote, war was an attack on women and children and elders, as was in Wounded Knee and many others. Holocaust, 1940. Wounded Knee, 1890.
Our government tried all kinds of tactics to kill off tribal communities. The buffalo were the central source of survival for the Plains Indians. When 40 million buffaloes were slaughtered, it contributed to the starvation of the tribes. 2 days after Christmas in 1862, President Lincoln sentenced 38 Dakota men to be hanged. 2 more were hanged 2 days later. After being forcibly removed from their homelands and under control of the military, the U.S. government broke its promise to provide food and supplies to the Dakota people. They were starving, which led to a conflict with settlers. They were hanged for the conflict created by this mistreatment. And now we get to one of the most devastating parts of our history, the damage from all this still affecting Native people today. When the government got tired of the expense and the struggle of the so-called wars against the tribes, Colonel Henry Pratt had the idea to take Native children and kill the Indian to save the man. Children as young as 4 were taken, intentionally as far from home as possible, stripped of all their possessions, hair cut off, mouths washed out with lye if they spoke the only language they knew, given Christian names and held to a rigid military regiment. They were denied parental love and caring. Many children died of disease, malnutrition, and abuse. Corporal punishment and sexual abuse was common. This is the Carlisle Indian Industrial School in Pennsylvania, the flagship school for the residential schools all over the United States and Canada. Children went through the Carlisle School, but only 10,000 children went through the Carlisle School, but only 150 graduated. One account was that children, among many punishments, were hung from their thumbs.
Boarding schools reached their peak in the 1970s in the United States, and the last residential school was closed in Canada in 1996. Our coalition member, Ramona, personally knows the story of one of these children taken. Her grandfather, Michael Day, is in the front row here at this Indian residential school in Canada. He appears to be between 6 and 8 years old, placing the photo around 1902, 1904. Many of Ramona's elders have spoken of malnutrition and the physical and sexual abuse that took place there. Her grandfather never spoke of what was done to him in the years that he lived there.
When Michael Day was released and returned back to Kanawake, he had no family to care for him. Both of his parents had died during the time he was away. This is his mother, who he was deprived of knowing and having her love. Ramona was in college when she took this photo of him shortly before he took his final journey in 1990 at the age of 95. Native spiritual practices were outlawed in 1883 and not restored until 1978 when the American Indian movement marched on Washington.
And even though Indigenous children in the boarding schools were beaten for speaking their own native languages, World War I and World War II were won with the help of the code talkers, whose native languages could not be decoded by the enemy. Native people were not given the right to vote until 1954 and not in all states until 1962. This means that Native people served and died in wars for our country where they couldn't even vote.
The taking of Native children to the boarding schools morphed into foster care and adoption policies. In the 1950s, 35% of Native children were still taken from the tribes nationwide. And in the 60s, it was known as the 60s scoop, when so many Native children were taken from their families and put up for adoption or put into foster care. I was one of those Native babies who in 1963, at the age of 3 months, was adopted by a white couple from Glenside, Pennsylvania. At the age of 50, I started to search for my birth family, and I'm happy to say that I found them living in Sisseton, South Dakota on the Lake Traverse Reservation. Here I am with my mom when we first reunited. I am the eighth of 9 siblings and am the only one who was adopted out. My whole life, though I knew I was loved, I never felt like I quite belonged. It may be a difficult concept to understand, but when I found and met my birth family, everything fell into place. And it saddens me to know that members of my family attended boarding schools with lifelong repercussions.
Another subject that we need to mention is the sterilization of Native women. As many as 70,000 Native women were sterilized by coercion or without their consent during the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s at the hands of the U.S. government. This history of forced sterilization contrasts with the sexualization of Native women, which has encouraged higher rates of violence and murder. The U.S. Department of Justice found that American Indian women face murder rates that are more than 10 times the national average. The CDC states that murder is the leading cause of death for Native American women. 1 in 3 Native women reports having been raped during their lifetime.
One thing that contributes to the high statistics of missing and murdered Indigenous women, in addition to racism, is the fact that tribal governments on reservations have no jurisdiction over non-natives. And in specific situations, they can only bring charges with the permission of Congress. The National Institute of Justice report found that among Native women who have experienced violence, an overwhelming majority of them, 97%, experienced it at the hands of a non-Native perpetrator. The legacy of this history is that Native Americans experienced the highest levels of socioeconomic distress of any population in this country. The legacy is not about who Native people are, but what has happened to them. The impact of intergenerational trauma is still being felt today. The racist Native sports mascots are salt in these wounds.
Genocide. In 1948, the UN defined genocide as an act or acts committed with the intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. In Article 2, Section A through E, it defines everything our U.S. government has done: killing, bodily and mental harm, preventing births, taking children, all of it.
It's time for non-Native Americans, especially white Euro-Americans, to acknowledge our own foundation of white privilege. This painting, Manifest Destiny, shows the basis of our perspective that nature and her resources were ours for the taking. And not only that, it was our God-given right. This is the conqueror mentality. We, white people, need to face the fact that we took their land, resources, culture. We killed their people who were in our way. And then we took their children. And the latest mentality is that we take their identity and we replace it with stereotyped caricatures and racial slurs. And we tell them it is to honor them. We have the arrogance to tell Native people what our version of their culture means. Mascots are one more taking in a long 500-year history of taking.
Some of the good news is that positive steps are being taken in both Maine and Canada in having created truth and reconciliation commissions. The opportunity for residential and boarding school survivors to tell their stories and have changes made, even if small compared to the violations, is a step toward healing. Here is a list of some important actions: rekindling of languages and traditions, discovering the lost children's graves at the residential schools, some apologies with action steps being made, and the Land Back movement. During the Biden administration, 2 truth and healing bills on a commission to address the boarding school era were introduced. The Senate passed its bill, but the House voted theirs down. Today, new bills are being proposed again.
In 2019, the 5 of us, 3 Native women and 2 allies, attended a hearing in the Capitol of the Pennsylvania PHRC's final ruling on a lawsuit against the Chamonix School District for their use of the Redskins mascot. Our CNA member, Donna, who is a mother of 2 sons in the district, had been asking the school district to change their mascot for years. She presented evidence of the harm 17 times.
I received death threat phone messages and social media attacks like this one. This is when the PA Human Relations Commission stepped in and took over the case, and they did their investigation. When the group of us heard the final ruling that Neshaminy could keep the name but needed to stop using the imagery and needed to educate their community, we couldn't believe our ears. That's when we decided to create the Coalition of Natives and Allies. It is important to mention that this ruling was before George Floyd murder, when the public awareness had changed after that.
Educating communities and supporting school districts who want to change their mascots is largely what we do. Our website, coalitionofnativesandallies.org, is a good source of educational materials, and I encourage you to take a visit. We have a documentary film, Native Women and Allies Speak: What You Weren't Taught in School, that includes the personal stories of the 3 Indigenous women in our coalition. Our friend and supporter, State Rep Chris Rabb, has tried 5 times to get mascot laws passed.
He's trying again to submit a bill to end the use of Native people and culture for sports mascots, and a bill to provide the funds to support districts who make that change. A good action step of all of you who are here with us today is to call or email your representative in support of these 2 bills.
Native people are still here. Our voices and presence are getting stronger. The resilience of Indigenous peoples of this land is powerful. Here is our member Ramona with a 50-foot statue entitled Dignity in South Dakota. In spite of all this history shared with you, please know the determination of Indigenous peoples of this land is strong.
Among Native people, there is a movement of reclaiming our languages, our food sovereignty, identity, and healing from the residential schools. Alongside the trauma our people have faced and continue to suffer are also the deeply inherited qualities of dignity, courage, generosity, reverence, and a connection to the natural world. Please note that this was a very abbreviated program on our complex history, but we are hoping to start the conversation on accurate and often unknown truths of what happened. We didn't cover several important areas like ICWA, the Indian Child Welfare Act, AIM, the American Indian Movement, and the Dawes removal, and others.
But our hope is that you learned something new today and that you understand the context for how you see Native communities today.
And again, we encourage you to all be teachers now and share what you learned. Please join our mailing list, which you can right off of our website, to stay informed of our progress and how you might take actions that you would like to be part of. And thank you for taking the time today to watch our presentation. We're going to begin a period of both reactions and also questions.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we already have questions here.
Yeah. If I may, Anita, I would like to go first. One, let me say, very heartfelt presentation. Donna and you all have heard what I'm getting ready to say. Let me also say that I lost sleep, as you all know, when the PHRC made the ruling. For those of you who are newer members of the staff to the PHRC, the uniqueness of the PHRC is that as a servant leader and as an executive director, I can be on a different side of the house. So if you Google that moment, I could have lost my job. And this is not a job. This is an assignment by something that's larger than me. It's a person that orchestrates the universe. But I went on record and said that the PHRC got it wrong. We would not tolerate the Philadelphia racial epithet N-word versus the Boston something racially epithet for another demographic. To say, well, you know what? Get rid of all of the imagery as it pertains to how Black folk are erased, marginalized, and oppressed, but you can keep the N-word. We wouldn't stand for it.
Yeah.
And so I say that to the staff and those of you who may not know this history, that at the time we had 11 commissioners. And I'll just stop there. And I'll say that Governor Wolf and my mentor, Governor Rendell and others had my back. And the commissioners, some of them did as well, but some commissioners asked for my removal. He's the executive director of the PHRC. How dare he speak out? Because we got it wrong.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
We got it wrong. And so as we open it up, I thought that that history should be told here, and transparency, as long as you continue to operate in the three pillars of the civil rights movement, which is truth, love, and kindness, truth, love, and kindness, truth, love, and kindness. And so I'm glad that you all are still on the front lines. And I saw our director of policy and governmental affairs, Donna. I think you should follow up with Alana Berman, because she's asked, could you come back and do this presentation? We need to be on the right side of the history as a commission. And under my leadership and our shared leadership philosophy, the prayer is that we will. Don't want to take up too much space, but felt compelled to say that we got it wrong. One last thing, Donna, you remember when I was on the stand and they said, hey, Executive Director Lassiter, what's a good investigator? And I said, an investigator that goes out and interviews people and asks people how they feel. And the judge said, well, what if I told you that PHRC investigator never did that? Never asked one person, how do you feel about Matt, the Neshamity Redskins? Didn't interview an alumni, didn't interview Anita, any person in leadership, did an investigation by the seat of our pants. Yep. And then we also had a person that wasn't going to show and told the judge, I can't show because I have a pre-scheduled vacation. The judge said, well, where's the person getting on the port at to go on their vacation? We'll subpoena them.
Right. And that was a main
It was. But we're a different PHRC now. We're a different PHRC now. You have to go through like the Myafa. You have to go through in order to come out better.
Chad, I appreciate that. Every time I see you and every time I see you speak or you're in an event, you always make this clear, and I appreciate that.
Wow. Thank you for adding context, Edie. Thank you. Thank you. I have these questions here. Yes, Director Berman. They want to know if you can come back and I had a chance to see the video, Arla.
Oh, good.
And wow, 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 wow. I just think everyone needs to see.
Yeah.
As far as just everyone needs to really, so we can really understand the impact of just the imagery, the impact of just all the.
Anita, it looks like we do have somebody with their hand up.
We have Claire.
Hello, friends. Good to see you again. And this may be beyond the scope, but accurate information is so critical. And I am constantly disturbed by the history of what's happened down in the Southern New York region and continues to happen now with Susquehannock. And the misinformation that's provided, especially by a group that presents itself as being a Native voice. And so you were saying a few minutes ago, educate ourselves, get to know things. But I also know that there are groups out there that can really provide some intentional misinformation. And I'm wondering if you would take a moment and speak about that.
Us? You mean?
Yeah.
You would like us to speak about it?
Well, you all are affected and know more about it than we'll ever know. So I'm hoping that your voice will absolutely share that information.
Talking about Naga.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a group of people who have some Native leadership, but they're I would say 95 to 98% of their membership is people who are not Native, who are from communities who are facing mascot change, these are communities who Native people have said to them, we want your mascot to be gone. We don't want your mascot. We don't want to be your mascot. So people in the community who are not Native, who say that this Native mascot is their identity and that they don't want their identity taken away, even though they're not Native, they have band together and joined NAGA. It's Native American Guardians Association. They are not the guardians of Native people because they are the people who are perpetuating the harm. They are the people who are hanging on to these racist mascots. And they've got a few Native people at the helm, which make them look like a legitimate Native organization, but they are not. They are actually the enemy. That is what they are. There is no Native organization, no respected Native organization, no respected Native tribe, no Native group, no Native people who support NAGA, who will speak kindly about NAGA. There's been lawsuits against NAGA. NAGA has tried to file lawsuits against Native tribes. NAGA has supported things that actually harm Native tribes. So if you ever see somebody using NAGA or Native American Guardians Association and say, because this is what they'll do, these people who want to keep their mascots, they'll say, well, look at this group. They say that this is good. Wrong. NAGA is bad. NAGA is everything that is wrong.
I'd like to add one thing to us because it's very slippery the way they've presented themselves. They say that to keep a Native mascot, you're keeping Indians in the culture, in the education, and they have this phrase, educate, do not eradicate. So it sounds really catchy, like, oh yeah, if we don't have any more Native mascots, nobody will know about Native Americans. And of course, that version of the mascots is fluff and craziness. It's not Native culture. So
Right.
you're teaching the wrong thing and you're still creating the harm and the disrespect. So
Right.
yeah,
So what we say is eradicate. So eradicate the mascots and educate.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. We have another comment here, actually from Ronald B. Saunders, who's the chairperson of the Pin Hills Advisory Council. And actually Pin Hills, which is the western region of the county, has actually a school district, a fairly large school district that has a mascot. discriminatory mascot name. And he's saying thank you to the Native women and allies for most informative, enlightening discussion. Your information is most appreciated. Yeah, so. And then also someone mentions here, how do you get involved as an Indigenous people? How do they get involved, involved with you all, CNA?
Well, they can contact us on our website.
Okay.
If anybody has a school district that they're looking to help change the name or needs to have their imagery or their mascot changed, they can contact us. We will certainly, we have lots of information to share with them and support them in that change. And we've helped schools all around the country with change. So it's nothing new to us, and we have all the ammunition to help with change.
I think some folks will be contacting you, so that'll be happening soon. And I'm Dr.
Can
Berman.
Can I say one thing?
Sure.
Rep Rab talked about somebody from Council Rock North High School. They were a graduate. I'm actually a graduate of Council Rock North as well, and they are the Council Rock Indians. And so, as a Native person, Native student, I went through that school district with that mascot. So, if that person is still interested in working on change, we would be interested in hearing more from them.
Okay. And Dr. Berman would love to discuss more. She's working with Rep Rab around the bill, HB 1987, and packaging that and around addressing the mascot in that area. Another comment from Saunders regarding our Penn Hills Council and that same issue with they're using the term Indian in their Penn Hills School District mascot, and that's something that the advisory council, they're working diligently to change. And so they will definitely be in contact with you about that.
Great.
One of our investigators has a question. Have there been any steps taken for the professional sports organizations as far as the leadership role and the efforts to influence the local communities?
You know what? I think that's a great question. I think that's a great idea, especially for, like in Pennsylvania, we only have 2 school districts that use the R word, the term Redskins, which is Sayre and Neshaminy. And I had actually thought about that. It would be a really good idea to contact the Washington Commanders, because those school districts, and I know Neshaminy, the community who were always fighting me, always held Washington team up and said, well, if it's good enough for our capital of our country, then it's good enough for us. And then when they changed and, there was more conversation, I was like, well, what now? Like, they changed it. Like, what now? And they said, oh, well, they fell to the woke, to the woke movement. But I think that would be a really good idea to reach out to those teams and see if they would make a statement to schools who are perpetuating this racism still.
I'll have Anita follow up with you all, and I'll give some social justice direction against the backdrop of President Trump trying to hold up funding for the new stadium if the Commanders don't go back to the Washington Redskins.
Yep.
Josh Harris, who's the owner of Washington, is also the owner of the Philadelphia 76ers, and we have a social justice kind of pipeline into him. It would be great if we were able to reach out to him in particular, and see if we can get Magic Johnson, who's a minority owner. I don't like that term, but Magic Johnson is the owner, to create a social justice milieu space for you all to give a presentation to them, to have them not relent at this very moment. People want to go back to the days of, well, John Riggins, he was a running back when they were the Washington Redskins, and Dexter Manley, so forth and so on. The people have spoken. The people have spoken. And so we need Josh Harris, Magic Johnson, and others to maintain the right thing, not the status quo, the right thing. So Anita and I will be following up with you all in another 2 weeks to see if we can get that meeting with Josh Harris or a representative Josh Harris within the Philadelphia Sixers, who, as you know, is the president of Wolf Blitz as well as the Washington team.
Yeah, he's been great at sticking to it, that he's not going back. We're not changing. It's done. It's a done deal. But also on the issue of Trump, getting his nose into the business, he went after Washington State has a legislation against these mascots and that these schools have to change. And there was one school in particular that was fighting it, and he had the woman that does their Pam Bondi, right? She's the education department person. She went and she was up there saying that they were going to take away funding if they changed their mascot to something that was a nicer term. So he wants, the thing is that he wanted the Department of Education to be, the national one to be done. He wanted to hand it back to the states, but now he wants to step in when the state has ruled that these mascots need to go.
And one of the things that we've come across that's so basic is so many people think red skin refers to the color of skin. They
Right.
don't know that it's the bloody scalp
Thank you, Arla.
And, I mean, if people could just find out the truth, I think a lot of hearts and minds could be changed. And that's why we would love to be able to share our film or even a 20-minute presentation like this, just to help change hearts and minds.
So I just want to intersect on the number of racist sports mascots in Pennsylvania. I think our listeners would be happy to hear that. Sadly, we have researched psychological damage, and so the fact that we present Native Americans, people, as a sports mascot psychologically instructs non-Native students to think that stereotypes are okay. So this perpetuation of racist mascots, just Native Americans, it really harms natives and non-natives as well, is the point I want to make. How many do we have left in Pennsylvania? We just had an intern research.
103.
Yeah, 103. Yeah.
And
how
I
many in
live
New
in New
Jersey?
Jersey. We have them in New Jersey as well.
And Lynn, what you were saying is that what it does is for non-natives, it gives them a false sense of superiority, and for natives, it gives a false sense of inferiority with, being represented by these.
Absolutely. And is this what we want to communicate to the next generation? It's harmful.
Yeah, it's a level of objectification, dehumanizing, and that. And yeah, important work.
Our Department of Education, any department, any agency that's there to protect the welfare of our students needs to take a look at this and say, are we really protecting the welfare of all students when we are making some students feel superior and other students feeling inferior? I don't understand why we still have to keep doing this. Like, why is it okay to use one racist slur? And especially because people will say, well, there's no Native people in our school, so it's okay. Well, if you didn't have one Black student, if you didn't have one Asian student, if you didn't have one Hispanic, would it be okay to use the slur? It's mind-boggling. It's just mind-boggling that our protective departments and our protective policies aren't protecting Native people.
Right. Thank you. We have one more question. I think Marjorie is asking, can you tell them what tribes existed in Western Pennsylvania? I think I had this question for you too, Arla, that specifically in the Johnstown, Indiana area, also any major past conflicts in that area that you all may be aware of?
Wait, what was that?
Often felt a deep sense of Native Americans in the Western Pennsylvania. I guess they want to know if there's any specific Native American tribes in the Western Pennsylvania area, specifically in Johnstown or Indiana County area. That's in the Western region of Pennsylvania, because I know you all are over eastern side.
Well, I mean, the thing is that there's areas where natives passed through. There were migration areas, and then there were areas where it was more of a homeland, even though a lot of Native people, moved around in that homeland. So I mean, Lenape, Susquehannock. I don't have the list in front, but there are. I mean, there's research that can be done to find them. I'm sorry, we don't have the list of who was in that area. And as far as conflicts, see, the thing is you can do research and you can find these things out, but then you have to look and see where the research is coming from. Like, you need to see, is it coming from Native people, or is it coming from colonial, or settler people? Mm-hmm. Because sometimes there's information out there that made people look a certain way so that, and what's happening today, make people look a certain way so that you can annihilate them, you can get rid of them. So I would just say, if you're gonna do some research, try to see if it's research that's been written by Native people or people from the tribe. And there's museums out that way, I believe, that have Native. There might be one called Two-Step Museum that's out there. Two-Step Native Museum.
The thing that's important in Pennsylvania is to realize that anyone that you run into who is from the descendancy from the tribes that were in Pennsylvania are not tribal nations. Those individuals are descendants, and they should be able to have proof of their descendancy. And the problem is that ever since the Dances with Wolves film, it's like there's a really strong desire to be cool, and there's a lot of wannabe energy. And we even ran into it in Maine in working on the Truth Commission, that people who said they were Native and, don't really even have any proof. And the challenge is when they try to say they're a tribal nation, because as we said in our talk, there's specific criteria in order to prove that you are a tribal nation. You may have descendancy, and that's great, especially if you can be, really sure about it. But that's kind of a problem, is people who want to pretend to be Native who really aren't.
Thank you. Yeah. I forgot about that movie, Dance with Wolves. I forgot about it. You're right. Yeah. Interesting how pop culture has that impact. You're right.
Yeah, I've had people come up to me and say they identify as Native American. And I just always think that's so bizarre, because I can't say I identify, my husband's Italian. I grew up in an Italian and Irish family, but I don't identify as Irish. I don't identify as Italian just because my parents were. I am Native American. And I hate when they say that, identify.
Mm-hmm. We have some questions. Well, I'm going to read them real quickly. I'm not sure if we'll be able to answer them. We had a feeling though that we would go over. So if you have to drop off at 1 o'clock, because we had some amazing opening remarks, right? We had Representative Rabb, we had our Executive Director Lassiter on. So we know it's 1 o'clock, 1:01 now. So if you have to head out, this will be recorded. So feel free to check us out on our YouTube page to get the recording. But we have a question here from Christopher Rogers. I'm an ally and definitely support the cause. Insane, tragic that it has come to a legal battle. It should just come down to common sense, basic decency, plain devil's advocate. Curious, how does the future law prohibit racist mascots square with the First Amendment and the right to free speech? Wouldn't opponents to this cause be able to cite the First Amendment argument in court to try to declare prohibition is unconstitutional? Do you all have any thoughts on that? There's
bans in other states, and they stuck. So I mean, I think there was something with your freedom of speech, that there's certain freedom of speech that is not protected when it will cause harm or so.
Protected classes, especially if it's identifiable potential racial discriminatory things. Prayerfully, the House Bill 1986 will be passed. They're saying thank you. Battlefield Jeanette is supposed to be an official Native American battlefield, Pennsylvania. Please clarify. But Bushy Run Battlefield in Jeanette is a Native American battlefield. Is that correct? Do you all know that? Okay.
That is correct, Anita.
It is? Okay.
It's in Jeanette, PA, and it's supposed to be the only official Native American battlefield in Pennsylvania. Obviously, the indigenous were actually driven out of Pennsylvania based upon what the scholars and folks just alluded to in the program. This is run by the State Historical Commission, Museum Historical Commission.
Okay. All right.
So
I know that voice.
Not talking about the Nodden Hutton massacre.
Right.
Absolutely.
That occurred in Pennsylvania.
Absolutely.
So I don't know,
that's what this is in reference to?
This is why when we make that comment official, you have to have that follow-up conversation. There have been other battlefields throughout the Commonwealth that haven't been recognized due to the history being erased.
Can I ask how that is considered a battlefield when Nodden Hutton was a massacre?
Yeah, you have to ask the state of Pennsylvania because they're recognizing that that commission, I agree with you. I concur in that. And they get thousands and thousands of visitors each year to Bushy Run, which is in Jeanette. It's just about 20 minutes away from my home.
Right.
And they sell it on that is the only official Native American battlefield in Pennsylvania.
But the natives never battled there. They were just massacred there. That's interesting.
Absolutely.
Wow. Okay.
The violation of Chief Pontiac and the
Yeah.
impacts of what was going on in the Ohio Valley.
Right. Wow.
Okay.
Change.
Well, we have some other questions here. So we have Director Berman. Ali, I think we talked about that question already. Thank you so much. Talking about the education is key. We really do want to it would be really great if we could potentially view that video that you all have. That video is so powerful because I think when people could see the video, that first of all, just see
Absolutely.
the film itself, how you all put it together, and the voicing and the imagery itself is just good. And the context of the historical data of it, the information is, just even people knowing the derogatory terms and the history of that is so informative for people to know. Before I saw that film, which was about a month ago or 3 weeks ago, I did not know the true terminology where Redskins came from.
Yeah.
Carla. And I think when people really understand what that means, there'll be a different connotation and they'll understand how discriminatory this really is to our native family.
Right.
I appreciate you all so much for being with us today. Do you all have any last comments or how we can continue to support you all?
I
would
just
like
would
to
like
see-
to, Don, I just want to talk about students. So as you can tell from our presentation, students in Pennsylvania, I'm in New Jersey, are not taught, in the country are not taught accurate Native American history. We do student programs from fourth grade up to high school. If you have context, if your children are in schools, please reach out to us. You have the website because we aspire to teach accurate Native American history in Pennsylvania and New Jersey.
And we
And
do
I would
have
like
it's for fourth grade and ninth grade. So we go as young as fourth grade. And we get great questions after our program. I just love when they ask questions. And it's very telling when they ask if we have the internet, if we have electricity. Do we sleep in teepee still? Like that's the level of education and how they still see us.
And stereotypes.
Yep.
Right. And we do go to colleges as well, and different organizations. But I wanted to say that one of the things that really stands out to me is how communities will say, we're doing this to honor you. We do this to honor Native people. And then when Native people speak up, they say, we're honoring you. And we say, no, you're not honoring us. And they say, well, then sit down and shut up because we're honoring you. Now, now the picture that you saw of me and a group of people with blood coming out of our mouths, that was from people who said in the beginning that they were honoring us. And then it turned into, now we're the bloodthirsty savages who are taking away their identity, their Native identity. And NAGA, Native American Guardians Association, developed that picture of me and other Native people who are mascot fighters with blood coming out of our mouths. That was Native American Guardians Association. They are not our guardians.
Mm-mm. And the thing I would like to say as a Pennsylvania teacher, I really want to totally encourage and empower everybody to be teachers because what I saw in Maine is that the only way that the idea transforms and people's ideas about things transform is when you share this with as many people as you can. And Maine was the first state to have a mascot law to ban them. And now there are 11 states, and we would like to join that group. And so when you get the handouts, which you'll get after the conclusion of this, please look at those and feel free. And, when you're with family and friends, or I even talk to people on airplanes and tell them the story. I especially feel an obligation as a non-native Euro-American. We really are the ones that need to get over this white privilege thing and start to understand where that came from and how false it is and how thin it is. And I see that we do have one of our best allies, Don Gallagher's on, and he's been supporting us from the beginning. And Claire also invited us to come to the York Library, and we gave a presentation there. So libraries, faith communities, schools, it's education. Whoever said that, somebody said it's all about education, and it really truly is.
And I would like to ask the PA Human Relations Commission and any members of Department of Education or any Pennsylvania agencies that are for protection, if there's some way that y'all could be in contact with New York State people who affected the ban, who, you know, their Department of Education, and I know our departments aren't exactly the same. I mean, our governments aren't exactly the same, but is there some way to learn from them how to go about affecting, you know, getting these bans you know, to be part of law?
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you so much. This was great. This is not the end. Continue to support. We're hoping that HB 1987 would definitely be something that the PHRC will be able to support, and also support our I can't believe it's that many schools in the state of Pennsylvania that have that kind of mascot. Is either the mascot or the name, because it can be one or the other. It's not always both. I'm realizing that too. I've been like doing that research, and also saw that Adidas has support. I don't know if they still do, but they did in the past. They had some kind of support where they were supporting schools to help change their logo, because we're hearing there's always that caveat or that bottleneck of, well, we change our marketing, that's money, and you have to change all of our mascot, or if we change our logo, that's money. We have to change our whole marketing, So Adidas was a organization who was willing to help in that regard. So do what you can to support and connect with your people within the state to really give that push with Red Rab and what the CNA is doing here. But we definitely want to continue to have you back. Connect with CNA to have them come speak with your organizations about what you're doing, your schools. What you all are doing is important work, and we appreciate you all being with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anita.